Delphique, in its 18th year now, is MDI's National Management Convention, also known as the Red Carpet event at MDI. It is an ideal platform for the corporate leaders to assess the budding managers and gain from their out-of-box and innovative approach to various issues. It provides an ideal platform to brand, network, and explore research opportunities. Let us now start with the consulting panel of Delphique in association with Michael Page, titled Job Market Analysis of Procurement and Supply Chain in Delhi NCR. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce our esteemed panel. On the second day of Delphique 2014, we have with us, as a part of our HR and consulting panel, Mr. Nilay Khandelwal. Nilay is Regional Director, Michael Page India, based in Gurgaon. Nilay began his career in recruitment with Michael Page in 2008 and during this time has specialized in a number of areas including banking, finance, sales and marketing, in particular the retail, fast-moving consumer goods area as well as healthcare life sciences. He has expertise working on executive level recruitment assignments. Prior to his current position, Nilay was previously based in Singapore office for 3 years where he was recruiting senior professionals across Singapore and Southeast Asia. He was also part of launch team for Page Personnel brand for Page Group in Singapore. Nilay holds a BE Honours in Mechanical Engineering with minors in Finance from National University of Singapore, where he was also brand ambassador for Singapore, creating incubation opportunities for companies in Singapore to go Southeast Asia and Middle Eastern markets and vice versa. Sir, we welcome you on the panel. Next, I would like to welcome Sam Lee, who is the director of Michael Page India, based in Gurgaon. After joining Michael Page London in 2003, Sam recruited up to board level in this market for several different disciplines. From the end of 2005, he was based in Hong Kong, recruiting senior HR and finance roles with NBFIs. Transferring on to Shanghai in late 2008 to covering comparable markets, Sam took on Michael Page Beijing and Northern China operation in early 2010. From mid-2014, Sam has been in Gurgaon covering finance and HR disciplines for Delhi NCR and Northern India. Sam graduated with honours from Imperial College London 2002. Sir, we welcome you on the panel.
Thank you.
Nikhil Jaiswal is Associate Director, Michael Page India in Gurgaon, apart from being the alumnus of MDI Gurgaon. Nikhil was part of launch team of Michael Page India business in January 2011 and is currently working as Associate Director based out of Delhi NCR. He is an electrical engineer and MBA Finance from MDI batch of 2008 and ETHAC France. He has subsequently worked in corporate banking and commodities trading for 3 years before joining Michael Page. Sir, we welcome you on the panel. I would also like to welcome Mr. Rajesh Sharda. Currently, Mr. Rajesh Sharda is handling HR for end-to-end supply chain for India subcontinent for GSK Consumer Healthcare. Prior to this, he was handling HR for 11 supply units of largest category personal care for Hindustan Unilever, including largest sites for Hindustan Unilever. He's also worked with companies like Denmark, Generics and Shaw Wallace and Co. Limited. So, we welcome you on the panel. I would like to welcome Mr. Deepak Jain, an HR professional with over 18 years experience in managing HR functions. He's been associated with India's largest group, Transport Corporation of India, since 2005, and presently he is heading the corporate HR function of TCI Group. He was associated with Shree Cement Limited prior to joining TCI. Graduated in computer science from Udaipur University and pursued masters in social work with specialization in personnel management and industrial relations. He has attended short-term courses at ISB and IIM Ahmedabad, among others. Over the course of his career, he has designed and implemented several HR initiatives and OD interventions. He has also successfully managed the execution of VRS scheme for blue-collar workers, trade unions, and statutory compliances. Sir, we welcome you on the panel. I would like to welcome Mr. Puneet Malhotra, who's working as the Assistant Manager Quality at Magneti Marelli Powertrain India Private Limited. He's a professional with experience in production quality, manufacturing and management with team handling and project management in automobile sector. Apart from this, Puneet has also received the Best Kaizen Award by CII. So we welcome you on the panel. I would also like to welcome our faculty mentor, Dr. Chatterjee, who is presently working as a professor in operation management area at MDI Gurgaon. Prior to this, he was teaching and consulting in same area at Administrative Staff College of India, Hyderabad. Dr. Chatterjee is mechanical engineer from BITS Pilani and has obtained his PGDM from IIM Bangalore. He has thereafter obtained his PhD in materials management from Barkatullah University, Bhopal, while working with Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited at Bhopal. Dr. Chatterjee began his professional career with Telco, Pune, where he worked for a period of 2 years in production and maintenance departments. Thereafter, he worked with BHEL at its Bhopal plant for 17 years. Dr. Chatterjee has executed a number of consulting assignments, the major ones amongst them being restructuring of Directorate General of Foreign Trade, restructuring of Engineering India Limited, and the list goes on. Sir, we welcome you on the panel. I would now request the team to come up to the dais and present their research findings to the esteemed panel.
Very warm welcome to all of you, and thank you for joining us here in Delphique's research panel in association with MicroBridge. The topic for today's presentation is job market analysis of procurement and supply chain in the Delhi NCR region. The agenda for today's presentation is, we'll start with the objectives of the research, the methodology followed, secondary data analysis, primary data analysis, challenges in the recruitment of supply chain professionals, followed by the inferences. Before starting the objectives, I would like to give a brief about the project. Michael Page is a leading professional recruitment consultancy who wants to launch a new discipline of procurement and supply chain in the Delhi NCR region. Currently, they have recruitment services under 4 verticals, namely banking, HR, sales and marketing, finance and accounting. This project is about analyzing the current job market under this discipline and forecast demand based on market trends and client landscape. The objectives are analysis of various sectors by studying present and future market trends. We have divided the overall industry into 5 sectors, which is FMCG, e-commerce, retail, manufacturing, and healthcare and pharma. We try to understand the present and future market trends and the impact of regulation and government policies on these various sectors. Forecast the demand based on client landscape and market trends. This is where we have done our primary research. The target sample was supply chain professionals in the senior management positions who have a fixed salary bracket more than 20 to 25 lakhs. Identify the recruitment source mix across the sectors, and finally challenges in recruitment and procurement supply chain professionals. The methodology followed was as follows. We started with the secondary research, where we studied the existing information and researches done on the topic. The parameters for the study were finalized and a structured questionnaire was designed as a primary data collection tool. we finalized the target basket by identifying the relevant sectors and the leading organizations in those sectors for whom we conducted the interviews, collected the data by conducting telephonic interviews, then we collated the data and analyzed to draw meaningful insights of recruitment trends under various sectors, and finally based on our secondary research which focused on analysis of various sectors growth opportunities, and primary analysis which was basically recruitment trends of supply chain professionals in the target sample, we've drawn some inferences. Now starting with the secondary research. The secondary research was a sector-wise analysis of market trends and the growth opportunities in the various sectors. We'll start with FMCG. FMCG is India's fourth largest sector, and the last decade saw a growth rate of 11% in this sector. However, the coming year is showing an impressive growth rate of 15.3%, where the market, FMCG market is expected to grow up to $103 billion by 2020. As we can see in the graph, it is showing an impressive growth rate in the coming years. The total consumption expenditure is also going to increase from $1,328 billion to $3,600 billion, which is a 170% increase. Rural sector. FMCG is very excited about the growing rural population whose income levels are also rising and who are willing to spend on goods to improve their lifestyles. There are many government policies also who are focusing on improving the disposable income of the rural market. There are many policies like food security bill, direct cash transfers, and there are many companies who are focused on exploring the business opportunities and potentials in overseas markets like Africa and other regions. Now, e-commerce. India has an internet user base of 250 million users as of June 2014. E-commerce, recent years have seen a remarkable transformation in the way India shops and trades. E-commerce has taken the world of retail by storm and captivated the imagination of an entire generation of entrepreneurs with e-commerce ventures of various business and commercial models. As we can see, the Chrysler Research expects a healthy CAGR of 50 to 55%, where by 2016, e-commerce market would reach rupees 504 billion by that year. E-commerce industries in India is divided into following verticals: online ticketing such as Make My Trip and Book My Show, online retail such as Jabong, First Cry, online marketplace models such as Flipkart, eBay, online deals such as Groupon, MyData, and online portals such as Naukri.com. Now coming to the recruitment trends, due to massive expansion plans and mergers and acquisitions happening in this sector, the recruitments are expected to increase a lot in the coming years. In 2014, recruitment increased by 30% compared to 2013, and it's expected to rise by 20 to 30% in the coming year. As per a survey done by Express IT India, these are the recruitment numbers, the hiring that is expected to be done in the year 2015. Although there are some government policies which are affecting the sector right now, for example, the many foreign investments are not allowed to operate in the inventory-led model and rather on marketplace model. There are restrictions in FDI. So for this sector to progress, a long-term committed investment will be required to improve efficiencies in the supply chain necessary for the industry and to lead competitive pricing.
As my colleague has already told that we have divided the whole industry into 5 sectors. Now I'll be taking you for the other 3 sectors. Firstly is the retail sector. India is emerging as one of the largest sector in this. India is emerging as one of the largest sector in this. And in India, there are 2 types of retail sector. One is the organized and one is the unorganized retail sector. We have an 8% penetration in the organized retail sector, whereas we have 92% in the unorganized retail sector. So there is a vast amount which can be there in the unorganized retail sector, which can be there in the organized retail sector. Also, as can be seen from the graph, the compounded annual growth rate for the retail sector has grown by 14%, and this is basically due to the government policies. One of the government policy is the FDI. In FDI, there is 51% there is 51% FDI in a multi-retail sector, whereas there is 100% FDI in a single retail. Therefore, and half of this investment is put in the back-end operations, which help in growing of the infrastructure as such. Secondly, we can see that this sector is now moving into Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities also, rather than the Tier 1 cities only. And global retailers such as Walmart, Gap and Tesco are also coming in India in a big way. Now, talking about the healthcare sector. Healthcare sector has a very healthy growth of 17% CAGR in India. It is one of the best performing sectors in India. The main reason for this growth of healthcare is, firstly is the strong fundamentals that it is having. A rising income level, then aging population, growing health awareness are the main factors for the growth of this healthcare sector. Secondly, India has a cost advantage in this sector compared to its international competitors. India is a low cost healthcare country. Thirdly, there is favorable investment environment in India compared to other countries. This is basically because of the government policies. The government is encouraging the private sector by following a PPP model, that is public-private partnership model. Secondly, the government is encouraging investment in rural areas by giving subsidy to the hospitals and the people who set up their hospitals in rural area. The government is also providing tax incentives, and most recently we can see what the government has done in the Union Budget 2014. The Ministry of Healthcare and Family Welfare has allocated $6.9 billion, an increase of 21% from financial year 13. Secondly, we can see that the allocation of $875.4 million for improving the medical education, training and research in India. And thirdly, the fund allocation is also being done under the elderly, for the elderly, under the national program for the healthcare of elderly. Lastly, the manufacturing sector. We'll be seeing the manufacturing sector. The manufacturing sector has largely been stagnant for the past decade, but now after the formation of the new government, this sector is also picking up. As per the McKinsey report, India's manufacturing sector could touch $1 trillion by 2025, and there is potential for this sector to account for 25 to 30% of the country's GDP, and it is creating 90 million domestic jobs by 2025 as per government survey. This can be seen by various investment done by various companies in India. Some of the examples are: Toshiba Group plans to make India the design, manufacturing and export hub. Secondly, Lango Industry has lined up a 325 crore expansion plan for India, and the government, in accordance with the vision of Made in India, the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs has cleared a scheme of 931 crore.
So, taking forward the secondary research from the point of perspective of the overall industry analysis, we find that the attrition rate for the financial year 2013-14 has come down to 13.4%, which is like 0.8% lower as compared to the previous attrition rate of 14.2%. So the retail and pharma sectors, the projected attrition rate has come down compared to the industry average, whereas in the logistics and the auto sector, we find that the projected attrition rate at around 10.5% is significantly lower than the industry average. Next, we have tried to present the level-wise average increment across sectors across the various profiles. So the profiles basically start from the clerical cadre, the junior manager, the middle manager, the senior manager, and then the top manager. A basic common trend we find here is that the positions of the team managers, the top managers, they have the maximum of the increment, the average being the 11.3%. Further, we see that in the pharma, the increment projections are relatively higher than the overall industry average across the positions. Then we also identified the three reasons for attrition. Firstly, the better career prospects. Second, the better pay opportunities, and third, personal reasons, like marriage, parents, medical issues, or managerial issues. Next, we have tried to present the annual salary range for daily NCR in the various brackets of supply chain and procurement, because our target has been limited to the daily NCR region, and particularly the 20 to 25 plus salary bracket. So we find here that the VP, that's the Vice President or the Director level supply chain, they are getting much more compared to the procurement PP or the Director in the procurement or purchasing department. or say let's the VP Director of Logistics, which gets an average in the bracket of 40 to 55 lakhs per annum. Talking about the primary research conducted by the team, these are the sample organization on which the team conducted the primary research through various questionnaires floated by the team. So we had 5 organizations from the retail sectors, namely Reliance Retail, UCB, Walmart and Target. 6 from manufacturing, comprising mainly of Hero, Gabriel, Mahle, Escorts. 3 in the healthcare and the pharma, Stryker, Fortis, Cipla. 4 in the FMCG, ITC, Dabur, Benkiser, and 2 in e-commerce, named Snapdeal and Jabong. Then the overall employee strength, when we see across these industries, is only 12% of the industries have less than 1,000 employees. Again, the target here is the Delhi NCR region, whereas 18% had the employee strength of more than 10,000, and the majority of them vary from 1,000 to 5,000, comprising 47%. Talking about the annual revenue, again we have the maximum majority lying in the 44% bracket of 1,000 to 3,000 crore, whereas only 25% were above 10,000 crores. This is the basic, this is the common supply chain management hierarchy we have seen across. So in the bottom of the pyramid, we have the executive operational level roles, beginning from the executive and senior executive designation. Then we have at the middle management the technical level roles, which comprises of assistant managers, the deputy manager, associate manager, and the managers. And finally, at the top of the pyramid, we have the strategic roles involving deputy general manager, assistant general manager, AVP, VPs, and the presidents. Now, another trend that we observed is the divisions. So, in some companies, we had the divisions region-wise, central, regional, domestic, or imports. Whereas other companies, it was done functionally. So, they had separate teams for procurement, logistic, indirect purchasing, warehouses, order management. Or in, like say, retail or e-commerce category, we also have it category-wise, say man apparel, women apparel, kids apparel, or product-wise, as in nutrition, dairy or childcare. Talking about manufacturing industry, the average team size across the industry, which we targeted, came around 10 to 100. The target position, that is the position falling in 20 to 25 plus bracket, was 5 to 15, with an average work experience of 12 to 20 years. When asked about the future plans to increase workforce, majority of the interviews, they said yes, while 33% were unsure. Asked about the skill shortage facing upward pressure on salaries, majority of the people in the manufacturing sector, they denied, with a 67% weightage. Then in the manufacturing sector, the trend is of internal homegrown talent. So it's basically the homegrown talent who takes over the higher position, the leadership role, the top roles. Only 20% of the jobs are outsourced, mainly through consultants, the referrals, the job portals, or the recruitment cell. Talking about retail, the team size which we found was average 50. The target position 3 to 25, with an average work ex of 10 to 15 years. The supply chain basically consists of a central line or regional line structure, and procurement is done less at the regional level but more at the headquarters. In here, when we talked about future plans to increase workforce, there was 40% of people who couldn't say a fixed number, whereas 40% said yes and 20% said no. And skill shortage facing upward pressure on salaries were like again 50-50. So here the trend was opposite of that of manufacturing. In manufacturing, we had more of the homegrown talent, whereas here we had 70% of the roles being coming from the outsourcing agencies, say 70%, 40% coming through employee referrals, 60% through consultants, and only 30% were home. Over to Manisha.
In the e-commerce sector, the average team size was that of 22, and the target positions for multi-page were about 2 to 5. The average work experience of targeted positions were about 10 to 12 years. A major e-commerce giant that we interviewed had a team size of about 40, and they had positions which we were targeting were about 6, and since the sectoral growth is very high, they're multiplying in the high tier bracket, that is the high salary bracket, they're multiplying numbers in a big way. They're diversifying the portfolios, And a major part of this includes the third-party logistics, which are growing in operations. For example, Gati, which was trading at around 23 a while back, is now trading at around over 180. So that is the growth in the sector. Major recruitment is done through consultants as well as referrals, the ratio being 60:40. In the FMCG sector, the team size was 18. The target positions for Michael Page, 5 to 7. The average work experience of the targeted positions, about 8 to 10 years. The recruitment is majorly done through consulting companies over here. Internal referrals are also used and campus recruitment too. In the campus recruitment, mainly the FMCG companies focus more on lateral recruitment. Although the growth of jobs in 2014 has been a mixed bag, the FMCG sector has continued to grow vigorously. Leading FMCG companies have continued to invest in hiring in the range of 3 to 4% with an eye on robust growth forecast. In the supply chain management and procurement divisions, multiple functional divisions exist in the FMCG companies, and supply chain varies according to the divisions. And interdivision movement in supply chain occurs, but is very, very less as compared to marketing. In the healthcare sector, the team size was that of around 60. The target positions for Michael Page, 8 to 10, and about 12 to 15 years of average work experience of targeted positions. In the healthcare equipment manufacturers, mostly recruitment is done through the consultants and referrals. The warehouses are managed by third-party logistics. Hospitals, mostly internal recruitment, as well as the pharmaceutical, same goes for it also. In the hospitals, the attrition rate is a bit high, about 18 to 20%. When asked about the employee expectations of staff turnover in the next 12 years, almost 40% replied in the affirmative, about 30% said no. And based on their experience and knowledge, whether there would be more or less jobs in supply chain now as compared to 5 years, 65% said yes, whereas 25% said no. We also focused on various challenges which the companies face during recruitment of supply chain management professionals and as well as procurement professionals. Some of the major points were that there is scarcity of talented supply chain professionals in the industry. The turnaround time to fill a particular position in this department is very high. When companies focus, a lot of companies were focusing on developing their in-house talent. The training and development costs are very high, and that's a major challenge too. Also, many companies said that they are not dedicating a comprehensive effort in finding quality supply chain professionals, which has actually led to suboptimal outcomes and high staff turnover. High recruitment costs also sometimes do not guarantee better quality outcome. And when we talk about the professionals themselves, while switching their jobs, they seek for 15 to 20% increase in their packages. The job seekers also look for quality brands, and which also requires the companies to focus and invest on employer branding. Now, some of the inferences which we have drawn from our primary research, the e-commerce and healthcare and pharma sectors look very bright. In the e-commerce sector, a lot of investments happening. Flipkart recently had a round of investment of $1 billion. Snapdeal, $627 million from SoftBank. Amazon also investing additional $2 billion in the country. So a lot of investment happening in this sector, a lot of growth. And companies are using this money basically to ramp up the technology and the supply chain management systems, because that is what forms the core of these companies. Companies are also adding more and more categories, investing in developing technology for sellers, payments, and mobile commerce. Involvement in third-party logistics is causing rapid growth in logistics operations and supply chain management sector. When we focus on the healthcare and pharma sector, the government policies, there have been a lot of regulatory interventions over the last 1 year, which will actually require careful consideration by the pharma companies as they plan their future strategies. Also, high burden of disease, good economic growth leading to higher disposable incomes, improvements in healthcare infrastructure and improved healthcare financing are driving the growth in this domestic sector. So the market sentiment is positive, basically mainly for these two industries and also the investor confidence. In the e-commerce sector, CAGR of about 55% over the past 3 years. A lot of investments have happened and major mergers have taken place, that of Flipkart and Myntra, Snapdeal and eSports Buy. So basically they're diversifying the portfolios and bulging their rural market share. Also, we have seen a lot of activity by these e-commerce giants when we studied the placement reports of various colleges, various B schools. Snapdeal, Flipkart, Amazon, all have been on a hiring spree. In the healthcare sector, expected CAGR of about 20% by 2020. To sustain this CAGR, the companies will have to rethink their business strategy. They will have to adopt new business models and think of innovative ideas to service their evolving customers faster and better. The sector is stable because very less volatility ratio of about 0.5, so it's stable and the growth is very high. MNCs like Eli Lilly, BI making the presence felt across campuses, and Indian companies are consistent with their growth. Example, Ajanta Pharma, which was trading at around 241 last year, within a short span of time, less than a year, it has seen a 1000% increase. So that is how the growth of the sector is going forward. And we expect an increased level of recruitment in all the divisions, mainly supply chain management. Thank you.
Now I'd like to request the panelists to come over to the dais for the discussion. Mr. Chatterjee, to initiate the discussion.
Thank you. I saw the presentation which you made on this sector. I think your organization partner has been Michael Page in initiating this research. You brought out certain points which distance out e-commerce as the sunrise sector in improvement in its domain of supply chain. You also made some important mentions about the government policies, which because government is big typically in India, so it has promised to bring about certain healthy changes in the sector. Manufacturing, of course, you pointed out that it is a little upbeat in the sense after the new government has taken over, manufacturing sector is, at least in its policy level, getting a little bit of priority. You have also mentioned that the attrition rates in the sector were marginally down from what they were. And but you have also said that 80% of the jobs were from homegrown professionals, which perhaps I don't know how much of market recruitment would go on. And consulting companies are a big source of talent, you said. And but as you wrapped up, you said that SCM, that supply chain management, is growing in the strength of professionals that it has. So it is one area which would need more of professionals. So having seen your research presentation, we would now go on to request our illustrious panelists here to give their perspective of this whole domain and how much of talented manpower, how much of talent they would require, because there is a representation from diverse industries here, and we think at the end of it we will have a very enriching discussion. So I would request them one by one. Initially, I think I would ask, because your organization partner has been Michael Page, could I just ask Mr. Sam Lee to give his perspective as to what he sees and feels about the sector and the recruitment.
Okay. First of all, First of all, thank you very much. It was a very good presentation, and I learned something, so thank you. The one thing that was missing for me, the one thing that I would need to see more evidence of, is the other side of our business model. So you talk a lot about clients, a lot of people who are hiring, but I need to know a lot more about the candidate side, because, for example, in China, Shanghai and Beijing, everyone is hiring, but you also have candidates. You have people who will work there. The moment you go to a second or third tier city, again, everyone's hiring, but no one will work there. So I would need to see some more information about not just who's hiring, because everything's optimistic, everything is fine, but I need to see evidence of the workforce who would go there and how skilled they are. So absolute numbers, and also how qualified they are to take up those jobs with those companies.
Maybe I can add on to that. I think one of the things that the idea behind the whole search and the project itself was to see whether do we have a disbalance between what the client wants, i.e. the companies that are recruiting, and the supply side. While you can have the demand, you need to have the supply. The more disbalance we have, that's when companies like us exist. If you don't have a disbalance, there's no job for us. So it's good to see from the presentation there's a good amount of disbalance. And I think further strengthening on Sam's point, and we have got people from the industry here, GSK, Magneti Marelli, TCI, and they represent different segments of the industry as well. So what I'll be very interested to know from the industry experts who have been in this area of business, when they look for hiring, and that could give you guys also a very good idea, when they look for senior management or mid-level management people in their organization, is there a challenge, A? And B, if there is a challenge, are they looking at hiring only from a spade for spade match, i.e. if you are a GSK, do you look for hiring from another FMCG or consumer good company, or do you expand that criteria? Because one of the very interesting stats that were shown here is in healthcare and life sciences, 20% of the team in procurement supply chain is relevant to us, because these are guys who have got salaries over 25 lakhs. But in an organization like FMCG, which is a mature business in Indian market, 40% of a team in procurement supply chain is actually relevant. So these are the guys who will have the supply in terms of candidate pool. But where there is a huge demand, and it's quite obvious from the presentation, in e-commerce, and if you look at it, 80% of the hiring in e-commerce is done externally. The reason is it's not a mature state industry at all at this point of time. So definitely they are experimenting. So very keen to hear from the panelists over here what their views are when they go into the market.
Thanks Nilay, and thanks Professor Chatterjee. In fact, one of the startling features was that FMCG sector doesn't show investor confidence, which was something like a revelation for me. It's one sector which is, despite the economy not doing well, has been able to save at least jobs, has been able to at least show some growth because of the nature of the product. It's not like a sector which is, and it's a nature of product in terms of innovation to cater to the straddle of pyramid. So at times organizations, because in my previous organization where I was, it was too much of middle and lower level what they used to cater. But as economy and new players came in, they came in with a lot of high-end products. Now with that challenge obviously comes the supply chain issue, and one thing which we have been struggling, and supply chain in this presentation was very much fixated to only which we call in our parlance as non-mix supply chain. That's not the concept of supply chain which exists. The best supply chain today in the globe can be as good as a Boeing, or let's say a P&G, Unilever, or even which was and still there is Dell. A supply chain concept is end-to-end. It's right from where you procure to right where you deliver. And that's what we generally, when we go for very specific to coming to your point on procurement and let's say a supply chain professional who is looking after, let's say, a supply planner or a demand planning roles. But unless you understand what's the back end in terms of my flexibility where I'm going to produce, as well as my front end, what my actually the consumer or the customer, because the number of lines what we speak in a sales parlance are increasing day by day in India. We have a huge focus on rural market. Many organizations, Unilever, ITC are pioneer in that. But many organizations like PepsiCo, even from the organization which I am representing, GSK, are highly focusing on this untapped potential of consumer base what we have. And that's what is required in terms of, as a supply chain professional, first thing, do you really understand the market what we operate in? And the understanding of that market is more to do with the content in terms of where exactly my product flow goes in. And that's one big challenge we generally face, because most of it is like, typically the analytics part which generally the candidate has done in his past profile. Now coming back to the second bit, which is the procurement part, India is shrinking in terms of its resources. It's really shrinking. Water, we all know, has become a scarce commodity. Many organizations today are struggling and they are drawing huge sustainability agendas. In procurement, which is because of the depletion of, let's say, my previous organization was the largest consumer of palm oil in India. But what it led was deforestation in Indonesia, because palm oil is a commodity which is coming from there. Now, what are the alternate sources from where I could develop, a sustainable vendor base? How could I maintain a strategic relationship where I de-risk my supply chain from a single vendor base? And most of the procurement stuff which comes today in the market and where we struggle is more on negotiation and costing impact. But that was a past of procurement. The future of procurement today is more on strategic relationship management, where you partner with your suppliers and who are equally very good. Today, most of the suppliers from where we procure our products,
mature organizations, what we would have seen. So that's the second challenge what we see generally in procurement vertical. Yes, even when we go for our early challenge in terms of, we visit some of specialized premises which are supposed to be pioneer in supply chain management. But it's all the concepts which have been talked about. But the overall concept of economy and the sector what we are operating, I think that needs to be really built in these professionals, and that's where the gap lies. Even if we go for like what you said, spade to spade, yes, I would typically go for a Nestle.
I would go for a, let's say, a Nestle or a Unilever or let's say a Kraft Foods. But
that's been the way it's been done, and now we are trying with, like, I can give you an example. In modern trade, we are trying with somebody who has a background in e-commerce, because that's one of the fastest supply chains we have seen. And in my
one of visits,
the mic doesn't require or my voice doesn't require. And one of my experiences has been the way customers have been evolving. Right? I know most of you would have visited UK, and I went to their Salu and retail shop chain called as Argos. You don't have a huge, spaces for your products. Your whole space is consumed by the inventory of the products. It's like a e-commerce, but on a digital online. You just go there, order your product, it gets delivered to you within the next 5 minutes. Now that's the nature of supply chain which is changing. And with modern trade which is coming in, very importantly, it's every day, every new stream, how does supply chain gear itself? So those are certain challenges where there is a scarcity of talent what we face when we look at the right fit of the candidates. There is a scarcity.
And when you mentioned the example of someone who's not coming from an e-commerce background, I mean, manufacturing has been an old setup in the Indian market. Now, I understand from an through your career any shift from manufacturing to FMCG or vice versa?
I have seen a shift from manufacturing to FMCG, but it's generally done at the early stage of the career, because in industry, in India still the industry is at a senior level unless you are something exceptional where the innovation in a manufacturing setup has been done which catches the eye of that sector. That's where the shift can happen, but it generally happens at the early stage of the career. It happens.
Very rare.
Very rare.
Can we have a manufacturing perspective first before I come to logistics? It's really important.
As far as the manufacturing sector is concerned, people right now, what I think is usually have to gain the knowledge in the manufacturing. I have an experience of about 6 years in the manufacturing company in the same organization. I have been joined the organization at the engineer level and I am now leading the quality department. So the company gives the rise to the people who generally stick to the organization. Generally people usually think that to take an experience and leave the company to go to next other countries to have more growth. But like you see, the Honorable Prime Minister also said, come make in India. So it's true that the government policies nowadays are supporting the manufacturing sectors and it's better to stick to our own country, to take the country to a level country so that the other people from outside the country come here and work in India. This is what is manufacturing, what I think is.
Now can we have your perspective, Mr. Jain, because you are managing logistics in a country where perhaps it's the most difficult to manage.
If again look at from the other side of the table, because we are the service provider to manufacturing and to other sectors, including e-commerce and all. If you look at talent, where is the requirement? Logistics is a very fragmented industry all over the world. And bottom of the pyramid is largely its operational rules. So if you have purchased anything from e-com side, then the person who is delivering stuff at a doorstep to the e-com vendors who are providing this stuff to you, right? So majority, almost 80% of the jobs are low-level jobs, and these are low-paid jobs. So that is one perspective. If you look at manufacturing and other industries, then probably auto sector is the most mature sector where supply chain is thoroughly professional. And a lot of concepts are evolved, and they are the dynamic factor for other industries. They are the varying factor for others. In logistics, I representing ECI. So there are very few business schools who are especially providing specialization in supply chain. Very few schools. And also very few training programs on supply chain logistics. So we rely on our indoor talent only. So our 99% of the recruitment is done internally. So we hire at entry levels and give them work. So the stays within the organization, they reach to a leadership level within 10 to 12 years. So those are the growth prospects available to a candidate who is starting or is or a candidate. So there is a lot of demand, there is a lot of requirement, and we have seen this presentation. None of the sector is growing less than 10% per annum. And from where you will get the professionals, supply chain professionals, companies like us, who are giving hands-on training to the students. Like Rajesh mentioned, there is a wide gap between how these actually things are moving. And we provide those trainings. When a student or a candidate goes to a shop floor level, in our sense, shop floor is a customer. is a branch office where actual movement of material is taking place, maybe a warehouse. Right? Those practical exposure are not available in any of the engineering or business schools. So, another factor, manufacturing has a direct impact on logistics. So, if IIP is growing by 10%, then logistics will grow by 14%. So, that is the direct impact on the logistics. So, these are the few perspectives. So, if I look at logistics, then largely we look at talent internally because we rarely find talent from outside. And if we have tried to have candidates from other industry verticals, but the mindset is entirely different. That is other side of the job. So, on one side you are demanding work from your service provider, and other way you are the service provider in yourself. So,
I would ask you one question, that in your industry, if you were to engage a consultant to identify a supply chain professional for you, what would be the domains of expertise which you would look for in that person? Because probably Michael Page is one of those companies which hire people at a slightly senior level. So if you were to hire any of these consulting companies for identifying talent for you, which would be the domains where you would need definite expertise before you take this challenge inside?
So definitely we would look for people who are in a niche segment, like cold warehousing, which is not fully developed in India. Right? Might be container fetch stations, which are totally under government control now. Although this is privatized, but still largely this is under government control. Or might be a person who is having broad exposure of managing a logistics part, integrated logistics part. So, the meaning is strategic roles, not operational roles. Operationally, might be companies like us, we do have professionally, internally trained manpower, but might be the areas which are new to us, and that way at strategic level, we will look for people from outside.
One thing which I'm also keen to understand is, like you mentioned, that supply chain also means a lot of strategic sourcing and end-to-end supply chain. And specifically when we are looking at the rise of e-commerce companies, what we are also seeing is a lot of these companies need to focus more on investing in the supply chain. Like you've seen a lot of places in the recent past in e-commerce, deliveries, and seeing a lot of bad tech for these companies. And typically these companies don't have a precedent of pulling talent because they have not been in existence for a very long time. So how do you see this? Because as these companies would grow, they would need more and more senior people, and probably FMCG companies, retail companies, and other companies which are grown talent internally for a very long time. How do you see that as a threat in terms of supply chain professionals?
Obviously, that's a good news for people who are there in the market, quite honestly, and people who are recognized, and you make your name in your industry. So that's a good news for them. That's how I take it. It's a bad news for us, especially from a HR standpoint, because you really need to, catch hold of that talent and make him stay with you in terms of how do you retain him. Honestly, one of the biggest dilemma which I have seen most of the supply chain professionals in the connotation what we have seen in the presentation is everybody aspires to become a supply chain director. Now, if an organization has both, let's say, diaspora in terms of a manufacturing base which extends into a supply chain base, because you have a consumer at the end of your supply chain, but you have a huge manufacturing setup at the back end. Now, that's where the dilemma comes in. How do I become that? And every sector actually has to have a fragmented supply chain. Honestly, you can't have a supply chain which will be generalized like a sales and a marketing strategy. You can't have a uniform sales and a marketing strategy for a, let's say, a Flipkart vis-a-vis a big bazaar, so vis-a-vis what we advertise for our products, or let's say even for a Fiat or an automobile industry, because your consumer and customer base is very segmented in terms of what the product value you are offering to the consumer. Now if I am offering a 1 rupee shampoo sachet, my advertising strategy and my supply chain strategy is pretty different from, let's say, a Ole or let's say a Fiat Punto. So I can't have a uniform e-commerce. E-commerce would have some of the advantages because as the organizations grow, tomorrow my product will go through a digital marketing, and digital marketing is coming in a big way, like what has been there in terms of modern trade. Today modern trade, and I can give you an example. I work in Unilever. When I was there in 2006, it was supposed to be 3% of what total product share. Today for Unilever, I think it's close to 18 to 20%. Now that's the growth what they have given. For GlaxoSmithKline, where I am working currently, modern trade was 3% 4 years back. Today is close to 14% with the aspirational growth CAGR of close to 300% basis we want to grow in modern trade. Because most of the metros, people don't have the time to go mom and pops to buy their products. They want to go to a single place, buy all their groceries. And that's what is the differentiation in supply chain going to look like. E-commerce, yes, would be a good, but I don't know, I'm not really in terms of any food products being, sold through e-commerce channel because of the shelf life, something called what we call as agile, being fresh and available for any product. So it depends on what industry you would be servicing. The supply chain model has to be fragmented according to that industry. You can't have a uniform supply chain model.
Could you add your perspective to it? If you, in your industry, were to hire supply chain professionals, what is the set of expertise or what is the set of competencies that you would look for?
As far as hiring someone in the supply chain, SCM department, our company usually grow the people who are attached to the organization since beginning. They give the internal growth to the people to motivate them, else if they hire people from outside the company, the people will get demotivated. So if one person from the internal organization is being reached at that level, others also have curiosity to work hard and reach at that level. So they usually give the opportunities to people who are working in the organization itself, rather than hiring from outside. Though hiring are being done depending on the skill level, but still it's majority of them are being given upgraded in the organization itself.
No, but wherever you hire from outside, what is that skill that you look for?
As far as manufacturing sector is concerned, basically we look for the people who have the knowledge of Six Sigma and quality tools, which is basically required by the customer. Every time we say that customer requires products, but customer requires quality products. The products that are produced first time good. The company usually have scrap rates high, but the scrap rate ultimately is a cost. So people should be hired which have a good skill level, good knowledge of the tools, skills, quality, which would help the organization itself to reduce the losses.
And you, sir, Mr. Kagda, could you again, for your industry, if you were to hire senior level, strategic level supply chain professionals, what would be the competency level that the competency areas that you would look for, typical to your industry?
Typical to our industry, because essentially I told you it's a back-end manufacturing and a front-end sort of a sales-facing organization. The person needs to have end-to-end experience in terms of the heart of any manufacturing-based organization, even if it's the FMCG sector. Does he know what goes into the back-end in terms of manufacturing? Because Puneet has touched upon a very important point, which is quality of a product. Now, if we are into a food sector and with the food safety regulations coming in, 2-3 things which are really coming in very critical are in amount of the regulatory, I'll say the strangleholds which are being created on the industry. Those are good for the consumers, those are good for the country, those are good for the industry also. Having said that, are they aware, like if my warehouse has to meet the FSSAI standards, do I really know those enactments or not? Second bit is in terms of, more importantly, is the inventory management system, because that's purely a working capital what you block. Now if it's a fast moving consumer goods company, you'll have a lot of working capital which is very critical in terms of the turnaround times which you need to end up in terms of bill payables or bill receivables at every end. So do you really know what's the inventory management models what we are really looking at? The third bit is the network optimization, because every time your supplier base might shift, which is supplying at the back end to the front end where you are actually the strongholds of your market are. So how do you really network in terms of my manufacturing where it should be placed, in terms of where my storage has to be and where my supplier base is, because what this gentleman comes from industry is very important in terms of cost is logistics. Freight and distribution today becomes a very critical element in terms of one of the biggest overheads what we have in our supply chain. Does he really know that if I say I'll open 3 warehouses in X location, but what's the impact at the back end in terms of overall profitability? So the network optimization is the fourth one. That's what we really look for.
Could we summarize now discussion? Thank you, gentlemen, for all your valuable inputs. We'll try and summarize the discussions which we've had till now. Mr. Sam told us about his perspective, that is, he wants to know exactly what the client wants. Perhaps that was not brought out very specifically in the research presentation which was made, or the perspectives which he would have liked to be touched upon. And Mr. Khandelwal also mentioned that the challenges of a particular sector in the supply chain management needs to be brought out. So while e-commerce could be one of the sunrise sectors in which the need for supply chain professionals is booming, but exactly what the challenges of this sector are should be known to a recruiter. And whether, another important thing which he mentioned was whether we could recruit parallelly from the same sector, or we could extend this recruitment to professionals from extended or substitutable domains, which is what he mentioned, which is very important, which increases the strength of the talent pool available. And going across to the other end, that is the sectors which do this recruitment through consultants, we have 3 representations here from the FMCG sector, the logistics sector and the manufacturing sector. Some of the very important points at the strategic level was brought forth. Logistics sector, of course, the cold chain part of it, as we know, is not very much developed in India. As Mr. Jain would know, that 40–50% of our vegetables and fruits end up in the dustbin because of reduced shelf life, and we are not able to preserve them. And therefore, cold chain is very important in any kind of sector which deals with food and beverages and all that. Then he talked about container freight stations, which is another area where logistics is going, because India has got a very, very, very large landlocked part of the country. So container freight stations are important. Another very important point which Mr. Sharda has brought forth is the network optimization, and more importantly, the regulatory environment. Because mostly it has been observed that developing and underdeveloped countries are under-regulated countries. We do not have the kind of good regulation which the developed world has. So that becomes a stumbling block as far as the development of any sector is concerned. Therefore, a professional at the strategic level must have a very good idea of what the regulatory mechanism of his particular environment is in the Indian perspective. And then, of course, we had Mr. Puneet, who, of course, who said that was a very important area, which is quality. That is another thing that we suffer on. So professionals in the supply chain who have good expertise on the quality tools which are available for that particular sector are, they are much sought after, and that is an area which perhaps has a dearth of talent pool in this country. So quality tools will be very different for different sectors. Mr. Sharda said you cannot straitjacket supply chain expertise in a standard manner as you can certain other things. Every sector would need has its own peculiarities, and the quality tools that would be required, the kind of quality implementation that would be required would be different for different sectors. So summing up, I think what we need is, if expertise in supply chain at a strategic level is required for a recruiter, then he would look for his own set of quality tools, his own assurance of the transport logistics, which may or may not include cold chains, container freight stations, logistics. Then the kind of network that we have, so network optimization is another important aspect pertaining to that particular sector which would be looked for. And of course, on top of it all, I can add my perspective to it, that regulatory environment in countries like India, which are constantly changing, knowledge of that is extremely important. Thank you, gentlemen, for your extremely enriching participation, and you people for having lent your ear for so long. I think it has been a very good and energetic discussion, and we have brought forth some points which would be of help to Michael Page and other recruiters in the strategic level in this area. Thank you once again.
On behalf of Team Delphique, I would like to thank all our esteemed panelists for taking out time and coming to Delphique. I would now request Team Delphique to present our panelists with some mementos. Starting with Mr. Nalek Khandelwal. Professor Chatterjee. I once again thank the research team for their insightful research and take the opportunity to thank our esteemed panelists who took out time from their packed schedule to be a part of Delphique 2014. I thank one and all for being part of this discussion, and I believe that there is so much one can imbibe from this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.